Welcome to Module 4, covering safety data sheets required by MIOSHA's Hazard Communication Standard. Safety data sheets contain valuable information regarding a chemical's hazards, properties, safe handling, and emergency response procedures. Understanding the information available in these documents allows chemical users to understand the risks of a chemical in the workplace, appropriate controls, and how to react and respond to emergency situations. The safety data sheet, also called an SDS, is a document developed by the manufacturer or importer to provide specific information regarding the hazards and properties of the chemical. Chemicals produced and used today must have a safety data sheet which complies with the current Hazard Communication Standard and GHS system. One of the benefits of the GHS system is that all safety data sheets will be in a consistent 16-section format, so the necessary information can easily be located. These 16 sections will provide information regarding the chemical's hazards, properties, and response actions. Safety data sheets must be maintained for each hazardous chemical at the facility, except in specific instances detailed in the scope of the standard. An important note is that if a chemical is purchased from multiple manufacturers, a safety data sheet from each manufacturer must be kept because the composition and hazards may vary between the manufacturers. Safety data sheets must be readily available to employees at all times they are in the work area, and employees must be trained on their location and how to access them. Employers must maintain the most recent version of the safety data sheets provided by the manufacturer or distributor. Below lists the required 16 sections of a safety data sheet. For safety data sheets to be compliant, it must contain these 16 sections in this specific order. As mentioned earlier, this allows for important information to easily be accessed. If you see a document which is missing or has these sections in a different order, it is a good indication that the document is an outdated materials safety data sheet and an updated version should be requested from the manufacturer or distributor. MIOSHA does not have jurisdiction over the information in sections 12 through 15, however they are required to be present in the safety data sheet. Section 1 provides information over the identification of the chemical and the responsible party. This section will contain the product identifier, which also appears on the label, the recommended uses, and contact information for the responsible party. The contact information can be used for any questions or if emergency response information is required. Section 2 is the hazard identification section, which will provide information including the hazard classification and category, hazard statements, pictograms, signal word, and precautionary statements. Section 3 provides information on the composition of the chemical. This section will provide the chemical name with a unique identifier and the concentration in the product. If an ingredient is a trade secret, the SDS will include the range that component is present in the product. Section 4 describes the first aid measures for the chemical for initial care after exposure. This information will include necessary first aid instructions by relevant routes of exposure, like inhalation, skin or eye contact, or ingestion. It will also include any description of the most important symptoms or effects and if those symptoms are acute or delayed. Sections 5 and 6 both address response actions. Section 5 provides information regarding firefighting measures. This will include suitable and unsuitable extinguishing methods, specific hazards from the chemicals including combustion products, and protective equipment and precautions for firefighters. Section 6 provides information on the accidental release measures. This includes personal precautions, protective equipment, emergency procedures, and methods and materials for containment and cleanup. An important note for these sections is that employees shall not respond to these situations unless properly authorized, trained, and equipped, because injuries or death may occur to those not properly prepared. Section 7 addresses the handling and storage instructions for the chemical. These include handling, proper storage conditions, and conditions to avoid. For example, you may see information like remove contaminated clothing, securely close container, store in a cool place, avoid direct sunlight, or other instructions. Section 8 contains applicable federal OSHA permissible exposure limits and other occupational exposure limits. Specific states like Michigan may have lower permissible exposure limits that are not listed on the SDS. Section 8 also contains recommendations for engineering and personal protective equipment to minimize employee exposure. The recommendations may include specific materials or general recommendations in these areas. Section 9 is where you go for the physical and chemical properties of the material you are working with. This section will include available information on the physical state, odor and odor threshold, vapor pressure, melting point, flammability, and more. Section 10 discusses the stability and reactivity of the chemical. This may include if the chemical is likely to react with others, conditions to avoid, for example, sources of ignition. It also includes incompatible materials. For example, flammables and oxidizers should not be stored together due to the increased fire hazard, and ammonia and bleach products should not be mixed due to the creation of toxic gases. It will also state any hazardous products which may be released as the chemical decomposes. Section 11 discusses any available toxicological information, including likely routes of exposure, symptoms related to the chemical, delayed and immediate effects, information on toxicity, and more. Sections 12 through 15 are not under the jurisdiction of MIOSHA since they address ecological and transportation concerns. Section 12 includes information on the hazards to the ecosystem if the chemical were released. Section 13 discusses proper disposal and safe handling of the wastes. Section 14 provides transportation information for shipping the material, and Section 15 provides other applicable regulations, such as the Toxic Substance Control Act or California's Proposition 65. Section 16 provides the date of preparation of the safety data sheet or the last revision date. This section may also include NFPA or HMIS classification information, disclaimers, or other information the manufacturer feels necessary. However, this is not required. Material Safety Data Sheets, called MSDS, is the name of the informational document for a chemicals hazards prior to 2012. In 2012, when the Global Harmonized System was adopted into the Hazard Communication Standard, the name was shortened to just Safety Data Sheets. Prior to the adoption of the GHS system in 2012, the MSDS lacked a firm structure and was not aligned with how other countries communicated their hazard information. MSDS also allowed for variation in formatting and language depending on the manufacturer. The update to the current safety data sheets provided a uniform approach to the language and formatting to communicate the hazards. For chemicals currently used in the workplace, an updated safety data sheet following the GHS format and information requirements must be available. Compare these two documents. On the left is an outdated material safety data sheet, and on the right is a sample current safety data sheet. The MSDS uses the HMIS classification system, which is no longer accepted by the Hazard Communication Standard, and there is no information for the supplier or responsible party. The other sections are in a different order than required and with information that is not consistent with the new SDS requirements. If an MSDS is present for chemicals in your workplace, speak with the person responsible for your hazard communication program about obtaining the most recent version of the SDS from the manufacturer or supplier. Safety data sheets can be maintained electronically, provided that the following conditions are met. First, like hard copy safety data sheets, employees must have adequate access without barriers on all work shifts. Barriers may include computer terminals that are not always accessible, requirement of a password not readily provided to employees, or other restrictions that limit employee access. If using electronic means for your SDS, there also must be a backup procedure in place to ensure access if there is a power outage, network interruption, or other issues. These backup procedures may include paper copies, a secondary electronic system, or phone access where SDS can be requested immediately. Employees must be trained on the primary and backup systems for SDS access, and there must always be a procedure for transmitting hard copies when requested or in case of emergency. Simply providing internet access so employees can search for safety data sheets on the web is not considered adequate for maintaining safety data sheets. For those employees who work at mobile, temporary, or remote work sites, the safety data sheets may be kept at a primary, central location such as the main office or warehouse. If SDS are kept at a central location, employees must still have ready access to the SDS and information. This can be accomplished by having a representative available to handle calls and requests at the central location, or through electronic or technological means. The written program must address how SDS information will be provided to those employees working in the field. The following posters are required to be present, posted, and available to employees. The SDS location poster on the left provides information on where the safety data sheets can be located, who at the company is responsible for safety data sheets, and how they can be reached if there are questions. The new and revised safety data sheet poster must be completed when a manufacturer or supplier provides the employer with a new or revised version of the safety data sheet. The employer shall input the information about what SDS was received, when it was received, when the information was added to the poster, and where the new or revised safety data sheet can be found. The information must be filled out within 5 working days of receiving the new SDS and remain posted for at least 10 working days. This concludes Module 4 of this series. To ensure employee training is completed, this information needs to be supplemented with the facility's site-specific information on the specifics of the hazard communication program and how information can be accessed, the hazards and detection methods for chemicals used in the facility and the operations where they are present, and the measures in place to protect employees.